What's up, everybody? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel, and then follow me on social media on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter so you guys don't miss any of our content over the course of this season. All right, let's talk some basketball. All right, let's do our deep dive on the Cleveland Cavaliers. So they improved to 3-4 after beating Golden State. The Indiana game was the other game where we saw all five of the starters. That was the first game of the NBA Cup on Friday on the road. Ran into a buzzsaw, so to speak, and Indiana's going to do that to teams. They're really, really fast and athletic, especially on the perimeter. And so they're one of those teams where on the road, when they're fueled by their home crowd, they can be kind of a gigantic pain in the ass to deal with, for lack of a better term, right? They dug themselves in a 70-53 hole, but they came out in that second half and immediately just put the Pacers in jail and got out and ran the other way and immediately made it a game. They actually took a 4-point lead in the fourth quarter. Super, super impressive defensively in the second half of that game. They ended up losing, based on like kind of typical late game stuff that can happen going either way, right? Like Buddy Hield ended up catching a heater, making a couple threes. He made one off of a Max Strus turnover where Max was like kind of draped over him from behind, and he just somehow made it. Buddy Hield's one of the best shooters in the league. That's what he's going to do sometimes. The Cavs had two crucial late-game turnovers that killed them, where they got stops. One where Evan Mobley just inexplicably threw like a 90-mile-an-hour bounce pass that was too far ahead of Darius Garland and went out of bounds. And then Darius Garland did the same thing when he tried to throw a swing pass across the floor in transition to Donovan Mitchell that got stolen. But so it's tough because it's a loss, and it's a loss in pool play for the play-in for the NBA Cup. But at the same time, I thought that second half was actually a really, really impressive showing from the Cavalier defense. They gave up a 102 defensive rating in the entire game against Golden State, which is like unbelievably good against an offense that's been pretty effective all season so far this year, and has a player in Steph Curry who's been arguably the best player in the league to start the year, depending on who you ask, right? And then they gave up a 104 defensive rating in the second half against the Indiana Pacers. That's what this team is capable of when they're really locked in. And again, like, there's still little things, like Darius Garland to me still is the easiest entry point into that defense, and it can cause problems. There was this weird moment at the end of the Pacers game where like Tyrese Halliburton he was having success just beating Darius Garland off the dribble. Once in ISO and then another time in pick and roll where he just got by him too easily. But he got easy buckets just beating Darius Garland off the dribble. And then he just randomly decided, actually, I'd rather attack Jarrett Allen, and he started calling for ball screens, and Jarrett would switch. And then Jarrett actually got a really nice stop on Tyrese where he blocked him on a drive. And then Tyrese just made a prayer, like an absolute prayer, step back three on the right wing that arced 17 feet in the air, it seemed, and somehow went in. But in general, like that's an issue in the big picture, right? Like Jarrett Allen can switch onto the perimeter and guard pretty well. So can Evan Mobley. I like Strus defensively. We're going to talk about him more in a minute. Donovan Mitchell's having a good season defensively. Karis LeVert is one of their better perimeter defenders. But Darius Garland he competes. Like, I genuinely am impressed by how often he puts his body on the line to get back in front of people. He does sprint around in rotation, and he is a willing participant in the defense. But his physical limitations do become an issue in late game situations, as you saw with Tyrese Halliburton. Like, hey, get out of the way. I'm just going to beat Darius off the dribble and get into the paint. And that's something that we saw a lot in the Knicks series as they attacked. Specifically, R.J. Barrett and Jalen Brunson spent a lot of time attacking Darius Garland. So that's the thing. Like, I'm really impressed by the Cavalier defense in general. They're in spite of the injuries to start the year, they're still 11th in defensive rating, 8th in half-court defense, according to Cleaning the Glass. Middle of the pack for transition defense, 15th in frequency, 19th in efficiency. They're allowing the 6th fewest points in the paint per 100 possessions, and opponents are shooting just 58.5% on them inside the restricted area, which is top 5 in the league. Middle of the pack three-pointers allowed, 15th in opponent three-pointers made per 100, 23rd in percentage. Offensive glass is still a major issue. They're grabbing just 69% of available defensive rebounds. That's 27th in the NBA. Now, remember, that was one of the major things that got them beat in the Knicks series too, was just an inability to finish off defensive possession. So, like, in general, I'm really happy with where the Cavs defense is. Their perimeter defense, I think, is much better than it was last year. Max Strus has been such a great fit. Offense has been iffy, right? Like, he's not shooting the ball super well. He's 19 for 63 on jump shots. a big issue with him taking really tough movement jump shots all the time. Like, he's actually dead eye when he's spotting up. It's when he's taking these wild drifting threes coming off of screens that he's missing. As a matter of fact, by the numbers, he's shooting 60% effective field goal percentage in spot up situations, 1.23 points per spot up possession, which is like amazing. But he's just 4 for 15 when he's coming off a screen. So like, it's been a little bit of a mixed bag with Max offensively, but I think that can be fixed with approach. Defensively, I think it's been a home run. He's like 90% of the Isaac Okoro experience in terms of his competitiveness on the defensive end on the perimeter. Teams are picking on him in switches because they think he's easy to score on, but he's not. As a matter of fact, teams are just shooting 4 for 14 from the field, trying to attack Max Strus in isolation. So like, the perimeter defense, like I said, Donovan Mitchell's having his best perimeter defensive season as a pro, in my opinion. Max Strus has been a great fit. LeVert's competing defensively. I even like Dean Wade just with his length and help, and especially on the defensive glass. The front court obviously is one of the best defensive front courts in the league. There's just the two things. Darius Garland as an entry point, still kind of an issue, and then the defensive glass. For whatever reason, this team, my guess, and you can kind of see it on film in long rebound situations, but this is a team that has athleticism in the front court, but they're a team that packs the paint and gives up a lot of threes. What happens when you give up a lot of threes? You give up a lot of long rebounds. Is this a tall perimeter team? No. Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, two small guards, even though Donovan's a good athlete, right? You know, when Karis LeVert, Max Strus, we're talking about a bunch of guys that are not 6'9" freaky athletes, right? So, like, this is not a team that's going to succeed in long rebound situations. But those are the two things to keep an eye on over the course of the season and biggest areas for opportunity at this point. On the offensive end of the floor, a couple of specific things, like Evan Mobley, we want to keep an eye on him in short roll situations. Defensively, he's incredible. I clipped a couple clips of him today from a couple games from him playing defense, and some of the unbelievable help and recover situations that he can turn what looks like a compromised possession into all of a sudden he blocks a shot and we're running the other way, right? Like, he's still unbelievable in that regard. But the big problem in that game or series against the Knicks was Mitchell Robinson's ability to kind of split the difference in pick and roll defense with him and Jarrett Allen and be able to effectively guard them both. And that would allow Julius Randle to basically show high on ball screens without having to worry about getting punished on the back line, right? And there's a lot of talk about the perimeter shooting, and it certainly is a big issue. Like, we just talked about Max Strus in spot-up situations. Like, you're already seeing this year the benefit of what it's like having a guy at the end of the chain that's a knockdown three-point shooter. And again, like, Max is shooting like shit at the rim, and he's shooting like shit and coming off of screens. But when it comes to the stuff that's like the kind of stuff that you actually need from him in the Cavs offense in terms of finishing plays, he's doing a really, really nice job there. And so, like, that's definitely a big part of it, and that's definitely going to help them in the big picture. But you need Evan Mobley in a too-big system to be an offensive threat. We haven't seen too much so far this year. His points per possession in the role is up a little bit from last year. He's at 1.1 point per possession. I'd like to see him closer to like 1.3 as the season progresses. He is 3 for 4 on hooks and floaters. He made less than half of them last year, so he's doing a little bit better in a very small sample size on that end, but we're going to want to keep an eye on that. Donovan Mitchell's playing insanely well. Career high 33 points per game on a career high 67% true shooting. His jump shooting's up. His rim finishing is up. He's up over 80% at the rim this year, which is insane. His assists are up. He's having the best defensive season of his career so far. Donovan Mitchell's just the last guy in the world you need to worry about for the Cavs. Darius Garland's having a little bit of a rough start, though. He's just 1 for 12 from threes, turning the ball over a lot. And again, he's the weak link for them on the defensive end of the floor. So a big area of improvement for the Cavs is just Darius Garland playing better. And he did have a better game against Golden State, and so maybe that's a sign of a positive trend. The core five, so Max Strus, Garland, Mitchell, with Mobley and Allen, they've played 46 possessions so far through 2 games, 122 offensive rating and 100 defensive rating for plus 22 points per 100 possessions. That's amazing. As a team, 104 defensive rating against Indy in the second half, 102 defensive rating for the game against Golden State. So a lot of stuff trending in a positive direction for the Cavs now that they're getting healthy. Again, just to keep an eye on the entry point, Darius Garland, defensive rebounding, Darius Garland on offense improving, Evan Mobley on the roll. Those are the main things we want to keep an eye on. Everything else looks good. Like Caris LeVert straight up took over the end of that Pacers game, just beating people off the dribble. I love his isolation attack as kind of a counter to everything Mitchell and Garland bring. Like I said, Dean Wade's been an intriguing. Tristan Thompson was like legit good on defense against the Warriors, made a bunch of big plays. So like they're looking like a team that's coming together in a big way here early in the season.